Rag. I'm throwing this up because it's a very slow day at work. I just got back from vacation. We were slammed this morning, and apparently it's lunch. So I've been working. Actually, on my vacation, I worked heavily on the Dungeon Master's Guide. We finished chapter 4, which was 70 pages. I'm starting on chapter 1, and we've got a good chunk of that. And that is up to 70 pages, and I estimate it's going to be over 100 pages by the time I'm done, which again, I am still working on 320 pages. That's my target. And so that gives us 150 or 170 pages with the 10 pages that have to be included. So that leaves me at 150 with 3 chapters left. We've got a lot of stuff to do. We got a lot of stuff to do left. I still have hardly any art. I've got to raise the money to pay for the rest of the art. I still have Faith's art, which was originally going to be slated for the Player's Handbook, but I kicked it to the DMG. And that takes care of a huge chunk of chapter 1. Now, the chapter 1 so far is I've got all the nations, and it's going to be like places, adventure places. You guys love adventure places. And I mean, like chapter 4, which is the Legends and Legions. That one is, I believe, there's 20 organizations and 10 individuals, each one with about 6 or 7 adventure hooks, a little bit more. So that came out to be 180 adventure hooks, which for 5th edition is a lot of adventure hooks because they don't like doing adventure hooks. So the first chapter is every nation. You're going to talk about the various places you can go, which are neat. You're going to have a whole page of adventure hooks and a whole page of the neat individuals, which I'm going to have to, well, fabricate a good chunk of them. Because like Yalarum, there's only 7 NPCs in the entire Gazetteer. They don't even mention any of the government, and they're all from one small village. You guys told me what you wanted to see, and surprisingly, a large number of you wanted to hear about the taxes. Well, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to probably put that into the conflicts and the countries and conflicts. Yep. Which I'm still working on it. I am refreshed from my vacation. We spent like a day in Galveston, and the rest of it we just worked. I'm going to be trying to stream more. Because not stream, but going to be trying to post more because I've been trying to do it, but I've just been coming up with a lot of adventure hooks and trying not to duplicate anything is actually pretty tough. And the other things that we're trying to do is and there goes there's Sprint wanting more money. They would want more money. It's not a bad phone service. They're just kind of adamant when you get close to payment day. Okay, but so like we got the 4 chapters. The next chapter we're doing, chapter 2, is going to be on exploration and getting to know everything. And that was one of the biggest complaints about 5th edition, and not just not just from like the people that are like, oh, OSR for life. 5th edition does not do exploration. 5th edition does not do exploration at all. You're either really good at it and it's pointless, or you suck at it and you're all going to die. There doesn't seem to be any in between. If anybody's ever run Out of the Abyss and had somebody take a ranger with the Underdark, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, we're going to be home for lunch. So what we're trying to do is I'm going to try to convert as many rules over from the original Wilderness Survival Guide, and we're going to have things from each of the nations. So you're like, this is what you're going to experience when you face Galantry. If you're going to adventuring in Darrican, this is what you're going to face when you go off road, and break it down that way to try to get people to actually, have challenges. Because, yeah, 5th edition is starting to show its weaknesses. When I was talking to the guys on Discord about what's going to come up with the player's guide, and they're like, well, you need to add all these races. And you've got like the 30, well, technically there's 40 plus races from the Creature Crucibles. But if you look at it, if you look at the Creature Crucible races, most of them you can't translate over to 5th edition, because 5th edition doesn't do large creatures, it doesn't do tiny creatures. It's like, good lord, the centaurs in Theros are medium sized. Your Shetland pony centaurs. Who wants to play that? So yeah. So like the pixies, the sprites, the brownies, the leprechauns, they're all tiny. They don't work well. The non-humanoid monsters from Top Ballista, they don't work well. I mean, okay, let's be honest. Top Ballista monsters didn't work well when they worked. Like the Nagpa and the Sphinx are the notorious examples. The undersea races, most of them can't breathe water, so can't use that. And then the werewolf or the lycanthropes never worked. Hey, thanks guys. So there's not going to be any new races, and you know the other stuff. Yeah, the Sphinx didn't work in Back Me. It's definitely not going to work in 5th edition. What do you mean I'm 300 million XP in the hole? I am looking for suggestions on what to cover for things outside the known world. I'm going to give a brief explanation of the Hollow World. I'm going to give a brief explanation of the Savage Coast. We're going to touch on nearby nations, the like Hool, Yavdalim, Windar, Denagoth, so you can see just what's outside. And it's like maybe again throw out more adventure hooks, but we're trying to give the dungeon masters something to actually play with, rather than what you get in the Dungeon Master's Guide, which isn't much. So you go down a river, this is what you're going to experience on a river. If you're in the mountains, this is what you can expect from the mountains. My God, we can have rules for hypothermia or altitude sickness, because I did live in Denver for a little while, and I got hit with altitude sickness a little bit harder than everybody else, because I live in a swamp and I'm moving to a mountain. Okay, so we're also trying, like I said, we're addressing a lot of the problems that 5th edition has. I've got to come up, like I said, once I get Rubus done with the chapter stuff, I've got to come up with $1,000. I've been trying to sock that away, but you know this economy, so you know what to expect. Okay, so what else is there? The treasure stuff, we're going to be including all the magic items that we have that Wizards forgot. We're going to be including, hopefully, things like sky ships. Not the rules for sky ships, but because they really don't have a lot of rules other than this flying ship. But stats for flying ships, stats for, I don't know, the airplanes from Serene, things like that. Things that the Dungeon Master can use. More so than what is like, hey guys, just wing it, because that's pretty much the Dungeon Master's Guide. I'd like to do more detail on the different nations, but I just don't have the space. How do you top the Gazetteer? They started off at 64 pages, and they went up to 96 pages, and they were in depth, and they were everything. I will be taking a more serious tone with some of the nations like Irendi. And I am going heavily with the revised Etrugan's book, because there's nothing to play. There's nothing to play when but Etrugan, because everything's bloody. Like there's nothing. They don't talk about anything. And then Irendi got to strip out a lot of the pop culture references. So I'll try to make the stuff on the nations as in depth as possible, but it's really not going to be as in depth as people want. Each book would require its own source book, and Wizards is kind of giving up the ghost on 5.5, because like 2023 or 2024 we're going to be getting 5.5 or 6, and then we'll see if it still remains D&D or if it's just going to be D&D in name only. It also depends on how well Matt Mercer can keep the fad going, because if everybody that's like loves Critical Role starts realizing it's like, okay, it's okay, but there's other neat stuff now that's not D&D, so we're gonna go look at that. And when all those people go away, what happens? I don't know. It's, D&D's, D&D's a fad right now. D&D, 5th edition D&D has its place. All the editions for D&D have their place. I mean, even 4th edition. 4th edition plays like a video game. Now that people are playing 4th edition on the online stuff, it actually isn't bad. But you got to play it in the correct format. And the correct format wasn't available when it came out. 5th edition is like superhero RPGs. It's like, okay, and now we're going to jump up in the air, fly, do a dozen backflips, and cut the dragon in half. Haha! It's like, which doesn't really work for a lot of people that like the old stuff. But for like Savage Coast, with the red curse and everybody's got a superpower built in, it's great. Need to work out those rules somehow. But yeah, it's like 5th edition it's getting so generic. It's like everybody's getting the same thing, or they don't know how to build classes without just saying, hey, here's some spells. It's like, okay, I'm going to be a fighter. Okay, you're a rune fighter. You cast magic through spells. It's like, but I'm a fighter. Okay, you fight by casting magic through spells. Okay, I just want to stab things, though. Well, you can also summon your future self to stab things with magic. And, I don't know, 5th edition has gotten very formulaic. It's gotten way too formulaic. It's, everything's starting to become the same. All the, everybody complains about the classes. It's like, okay, we get spells, and we get, everybody starts off with spells, everybody starts off with dark vision, and there we go. And, it's just, I want it to be good. I want the things that I play to be fun. And it's really hard to run certain adventures in 5th edition because it's so pillow-fisted. Like, I want like 5th edition has some simple rules, but a lot of the overly complex rules from yesteryear, you look at it, it's like, okay, we really didn't need this many rules. Like, reading through the 1st edition Dungeons and Dragons, or the 1st edition DMG, it's like every page is a new rule. It's like, okay, this is great, but we don't need this many. And then 3rd edition collapsed under its own weight. Like 1st edition or 5th edition and 1st edition are still about the same in terms of releases, though 1st edition gave us the gave us some of the best modules that still dwarf anything today. 5th edition, is there actually a decent module that was original and not based on something else? Everything seems to be okay. It was like, well, Strahd was good. Yeah, Strahd was Ravenloft with extra bits glued on. The people complain about all the stuff. Like, I'm waiting for the new book to come out so I can convert it to Mystara. And like, again, I don't like utopias in my fantasy, and that's their big selling point because it doesn't. But that's boring. And I got to wrap this up because work's telling me, my boss is telling me to get back to work, but I've got about a minute. So, working on the Dungeon Master's Guide. I will be trying to get some test rules up for people for the combat and the domain stuff, because I gotta create that. I can't just copy what they've done because it's using fan-based stuff. You can't replicate. The new work on some magic items, but that's a little bit farther down. I've got to be doing got to be raising the $1,000 because art. If anybody in Houston wants to buy some furniture, I got plenty left from my last affair. Or from my last relationship, and now that I'm married, we have a lot of redundant furniture. But I am not trying to hawk my furniture on there. I'm just like, I've been trying to sell it but yeah, so we'll be getting the Player's Guide 2.0 up really quick. Dennis has graciously translated everything into Italian. and we'll be putting that up as well. Yeah, the Judges Guild. The problem with the old Judges Guild stuff is they were printed on newspaper, newsprint, and that's why not so few of them survive, because that's not something that survives very long. Okay, I need to get going because my boss is giving me the stare. Actually, she's just texting me going, wanting to know where I am. So I will have more up. I'll have more up soon. I will hopefully have the Sea Peoples and remaster up. Then I will work on the Night Howlers, and then I can actually start getting into the modules. And then once I get into that, I'll tear through those. Those are short. And then I will get Robotech up and hopefully do a live stream again. So, all right, well, let me get going before they start looking for me.